Aloha! You are listening to Inside the Desert Oasis Room, episode number 205. This episode is sponsored by the Tiki Bar T-Shirt Club, where their monthly T-shirt designs pay tribute to a Polynesian bar or restaurant from days long past. Each design is available for a limited time and will never be produced again. For more information and to check out this month's shirt, visit tikibartshirtclub.com. This podcast is sponsored by Frogtown Brewery, an independent craft brewery and tap room located in Northeast Los Angeles. Stop in and enjoy one of their excellent beers from their ever-changing, diverse menu. For more information, go to frogtownbrewery.com and follow them on social media at Frogtown Brewery. Today, we chat with our friends Alex Lamb and Gustavo Rojas. You might know Alex as co-director of the upcoming documentary film, The Donn of Tiki, a biographical story of the life of Donn Beach, also known as Don the Beachcomber. And joining us is our friend Gustavo, partner of our favorite brewery in Los Angeles, Frogtown Brewery. On this episode, we chat about the origins of Frogtown Brewery, our recent Don the Beachcomber inspired beer collaboration, how we approached and made the beer, and what's in store for the big release event when it's debuted to the beer and tiki community, including information on our tie-in with the Oceanic Arts Farewell Extravaganza. As always, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did bringing it to you. If you'd like to follow our adventures, check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/PolynesianPop, where we chronicle events, bars, travel spots, cocktail tutorials, and more. And if you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron at our new Patreon page, where membership grants you early access to podcasts and videos, front-of-the-line privileges to new merch releases like tiki mugs and apparel, as well as exclusive content, meetups, and screen credits. Alrighty, let's get into this. Pour yourself an ice-cold beer and join us inside the Desert Oasis Room as we welcome Alex Lamb from the Donn of Tiki and Gustavo Rojas from Frogtown Brewery.
Desert Oasis Room.
Alrighty, we are back with another episode of Inside the Desert Oasis Room, and we've got some special friends with us today on the podcast. People I'm making beer with. We've got Alex from the Donn of Tiki, and we've got Gustavo from Frogtown Brewery.
Hello, hello.
Aloha, guys.
Hi. Howdy.
Thanks for joining the show. I'm excited about this new beer because we are doing something a little bit different here. I'm going to make the claim, I'm going to own it, that this is the first beer maybe with absinthe in it?
Not absinthe, right? We can't say absinthe. It's anise.
So we can't say
artist
absinthe.
formerly known as absinthe.
Yeah. Because it doesn't have absinthe, the spirit in it.
Oh, gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. So anise.
Yep.
Which is a cousin of absinthe or a...
It's the
spice used to make the spirit.
There you go. There you go. So we're going to talk about that beer here in a minute, but I think it would be interesting for some of our listeners who don't know. Let's, number one, start with Frogtown Brewery. And maybe Gustavo could give us a little bit of the history of Frogtown, how it got started, where you guys are located, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started October 1st of 2016, and we are in the Frogtown neighborhood, or what the locals call Frogtown. It's officially known as Elysian Valley, and we're the little brewery that could. So we make some darn good craft beer, and we've been fortunate enough to make friends in the industry and throughout California, and done quite a few collaborations now, and the latest and greatest is with these two fine gentlemen and their respective groups to put together, may I say it, Beachcomber's Gold.
There we go.
There it is.
And there's the reveal. Beachcomber's Gold.
Yeah.
I always tell people the reason why that part of town is called Frogtown is because it's right by the LA River. And at one time, frogs used to come out of the river and blanket the streets, right?
That's exactly right.
Is that like a seasonal thing that they were doing that?
It was a seasonal thing. I'm pretty sure it was winter for obvious reasons. And the locals would just call it Frogtown because I've seen photos. Some of the old timers have brought in some photos from what I believe is probably the 50s and 60s and farther back from that. And it was kind of a cool site by the thousands.
Wow.
And
sounds biblical.
Totally.
It kind of reminds me of a movie. Wasn't there a movie that were just like
Magnolia?
Was it
Magnolia? Wasn't it raining
or something? What
raining
movie was
frogs?
that?
It's probably a number of movies, right? Because some like Locust sounds like it's a thing.
I remember something
Spider
with like
sounds like a thing.
tarantulas or something.
Yeah,
that
tarantulas.
Probably
covered the
arachnophobia.
streets.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was arachnophobia, but something like that. You guys almost kind of, at least the impression I got, is you almost spearheaded the change of that area. You were like one of the first ones.
Definitely
over there.
one of the first. Yeah. There's by all means a few folks before us. So the story of the area is it's in between Highland Park and Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
It's probably the easiest way to summarize it, right? So,
I always tell people you're near Dodger Stadium.
Exactly right.
Because I take Stadium way off the 5 freeway to get there. So.
Yep, dead on. Yeah. So with that said, there's a gap in people's mind as to what's there, right? So it's Dodger Stadium. Next thing you know, you're in way back when it was Dodger Stadium and then Pasadena. There was nothing in between. It didn't exist. And then Highland Park became more hip about a dozen years ago or so. And now it's like, oh, cool, I know where Highland Park is and I don't know anything else. Or I know where Dodger Stadium's at, and there's a gap. So in that time, in those years, there were a number of commercial entities in that valley because it's, on the river, sort of industrial. And the two largest businesses were aeronautic parts and bakeries. It was like the bakery hub of LA for a number of years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, a block away on the corner of Gilroy and Ripple is what's now called Modernica Studios, and they do filming, they do mid-century modern furniture rentals, a number of other things related to the movie industry. That facility that he purchased was the old West Coast Hostess.
Interesting.
Bakery. Yeah, a large-scale bakery. And the story goes, urban legend goes, that each bakery, I think there was maybe 4 or 5 in the nation or whatever, it's like 6 or whatever, half dozen, and each bakery would do a number of the products, but each one had its specialty and would hold the original recipe. That way, if one of the other bakeries went down, they could still produce more, but they would lose only one of the secret recipes. And I believe this one was the Ho-Hos. And we did a tour of the facility. Yeah, it's kind of amazing. Did a tour of the facility, and there is literally a 5-sided cage. Okay. It looks kind of like UFC, like the old school UFC, and that's where they kept the recipe. So you had to go in behind a door, go into this like space, and it was what looks like a dog kennel, but the top is also fenced. Yeah. So you couldn't get in; it was locked. And then somehow, like the facility manager or whoever area manager had the key for that, but that's where they kept it. So anyway, that's what that entire space was, or entire neighborhood, Frogtown. It was a hub for commercial bakeries in LA.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's so when those bakeries started going out of business or moving or centralizing or whatever, the residences became more prominent, right? Right. And then artists moved into some of those spaces too. So there was lofts and that sort of thing. So it's got a really cool, like, there's still one aeronautic company right behind us. It still functions today. I believe his name is Tom, super nice guy. And he does literally bolts for airplane instrument clusters. But like a specialized bolt of some sort or whatever.
That is super specialized.
Yeah, and he's got the equipment to do that. So it's pretty fascinating how there's like, it's like this hodgepodge of like art meets like concrete river meets like, residences, right? So it's kind of cool.
Love it, love it. I love the story that you have to tell.
Yes.
Which, if you guys have not heard an early episode of Inside the Desert Oasis Room, this was probably a good 4 or 5 years ago when you told this story. So you'd have to dig this one in the archive. But we're going to save you all of that trouble by having Gustavo tell this story again. I want our listeners to hear what used to be in the facility that Frogtown is in today.
Absolutely. So as I just stated, it comes from a artistic and manufacturing history in the neighborhood. So the folks that occupied our space, what is now the brew house and the brewery, the folks that occupied that space they're still around. They actually moved because they grew and they were expanding. Oh yeah. They moved.
It's not because they went out of business.
Not at all. Business was booming.
Good.
Business was booming.
That changes everything.
It sure does. Yeah, I guess I didn't mention that to you last time. So they moved because business is booming.
This is great. Oh, that changes my perspective now.
Totally, yeah. So I think you're going to buy one now, with that said. So I'll throw the punchline out first. So these folks moved out probably about a year before we got the space. In 2015, because it took us a year to build out and get the licensing and all that. So they probably moved out in 2014 or so. And they moved to City Terrace. I know the space because we used to get some of their old mail, which is kind of where this is going. And they are a sex doll manufacturing company. Oh, so
you already gave it away. So here's the thing that when you told us the last time, you said this envelope came in and you were like, what is this?
Yeah.
And you held it up to the light.
Yeah, so I held it up to the light because it was like a handwritten letter to a business, which you don't really see a lot of, right? It's usually like, more like professional sort of printed thing, printed out. And I held it up to the light and I could tell it was a check. And it was a check made out to like $236.42. That might be the exact actual figure. Super random. And it said to so-and-so manufacturing company from Larry Johnson, and it was somewhere in the Midwest, was where this check was originated from. And in the memo, it just said, Vajankle. Yes. Take a moment to sort of ponder that. Vajankle. What does that mean to you? That should be one of your next essays.
I'm going to take a moment to Google it.
That's exactly what we did.
What they did.
That's exactly what we did next. So you should do that, Alex, while I continue with the story. So we all immediately pulled our phones out and Googled it, right? GTS, Google that shit, right?
Oh my God.
So, exactly right. Oh my God was our reaction.
And that's why all the drains were clogged.
Yep. So they are quite literally, they were making it in the entire warehouse, but from what we can tell from what was left behind with some like small pieces of equipment and that sort of thing, they were making the bulk of it literally in our brew house. So there's definitely some spirits there in our beer.
That's hilarious.
And yeah, it's a Vajankle. And for those of you who are laying on your couch and don't want to get up to your phone that's charging, it is a prosthetic ankle that
it looks like a severed foot.
A severed foot is the best way to describe it, that you use for your sexual pleasure.
That has a vagina attached to it.
With a vagina
ankle
on the ankle,
end of the ankle, end of the severed ankle.
It's like a.
By the way, for you guys watching at home, Alex is doing gestures right now. Describing it.
It's like a fleshlight with a foot. There you go.
It's like a footlight.
It's a footlight. So that's hilarious. It's a good thing I have this podcast marked explicit on all of our carriers right there.
Put the kids away. It's about to get freaky.
Yeah. This is not a kid-friendly show. So with all of that said, brewery gets open. I remember all the hoops you were jumping through.
Yes.
In the beginning.
Yes.
That you needed this and you needed that.
Yep.
Inspection, permit, and failed inspection because they needed something else. So then you'd get that. And I just remember how long that process was.
Right.
Because we were all excited for you to open this brewery.
For sure.
And it was just month after month after month after month. And how frustrating that was. But now you guys are 100% open. and growth, it seems like year after year, with the exception of the pandemic,
Yep.
right? Because you guys belt out some of the best beers in LA, in my opinion.
Thank you.
And I want to talk about our brewers
In Alex's
over there.
opinion too.
And Alex's opinion too.
Yeah, my opinion as well.
So I want to talk about the brewers there, because this whole thing started with Adam and Mike.
Yep.
And they were brewing in their garage or something, right?
Absolutely. So Adam and Mike are my business partners, and they were clients first. My day job is real estate. So I met Mike many years ago, I think now probably 8.5, 9 years ago. And we became friends through the business relationship. And he was like, "Hey, do you like beer?" I'm like, "Sure." And then he's like, "Oh, well, we homebrew, or I homebrew, and do you want to come over?" And I was like, yeah, sure. One of these days." It didn't sound appealing at all. Someone making a commercial product in their house, right? So I pictured like an oar in a bathtub after he had just showered or something. So I wasn't not that. I don't know if he knows that, by the way, but he'll know it now. I wasn't that interested, so I might have blown him off a couple times for the first invites, and then it sounded like it was an all right thing to do. Went over, hung out with him, and he had. That's what it was. I skipped the home brewing process. That didn't seem to really interest me. And I went over for the tasting, which definitely interests me. So I went over, and it was pretty good. And I didn't know beer that well at the time, and it seemed like a fun thing to just go and hang out and connect with someone. So we did that. And then after I liked it, he invited me over for a brew session, and that he was sort of doing on his own. So that was kind of fun. I was literally just handing him stuff and trying to, kind of be a part of it, but I wasn't really trying to learn. And then he's like, "Well, if you like the beer, you got to meet my buddy. He's the one who taught me." And they're good friends from a prior job they held together in Chicago, where they each grew up. And I met Adam. We hung out and had some beers, and then they had a beer release party, which is really what's started all this. And they, at that point, had been brewing. Adam had been brewing for a number of years since he was in college, and Adam taught Mike, and they had been brewing probably a couple years together, I think, at the time. Yeah. And they had a number of beers. I want to say 6 or 8 beers that they had perfected.
All of them good?
Well, they had perfected, and perfection's a weird word for home brewing, right? But they had honed it in, and they're like, "Well, this is good enough where we want to have our friends and family over." So they threw this event and invited me over. And then I realized that it was literally like their close friends, family, and myself. So I was super honored that they had done that and invited me over. And then it turns out a couple of their close friends or friends of friends that went over owned bars in LA. And they had complimented them enough to say, "Hey, this is you're I think you're onto something. You should try to do something with that." And I'm like, yeah. Someday sort of the goal would be to maybe open up a brewery, a year from now. And a couple months after that, or a few months after that, they said, "Hey, we want to open up a homebrew supply shop. We work Monday through Friday. We're done at 5 or 6. We don't work weekends, so maybe we can open up after hours in the evening, and maybe Saturdays and Sundays open up a little homebrew supply shop here on the east side, maybe Highland Park, maybe Silver Lake, that sort of thing, maybe Eagle Rock, and sell products that we would want to buy, because right now they had to go at that moment in time, they had to go out to the west side to buy the homebrew supply stuff." So that's really where it started. They called me and said, "Hey, from a real estate perspective, we want you to find us a commercial lease space that's small enough to house that." And that didn't work out because at the time, and the laws have changed since in LA City, they've made it more lenient for breweries, is that if you were going to brew something that's considered manufacturing, and that was then industrial zoning, so there are no 700 square feet industrial buildings, right?
Yeah.
They're all 4,000 or 5,000
right,
plus, because
right.
you're equipment and space and forklifts and that sort of thing. So that died out real quick. And then a month or so later, they contacted me again and said, we're going to do it. And I'm like, well, what are we going to do? That we can't find that kind of space. I can't find it for you. I wish I could, but I can't, from a real estate perspective. No, we're going to go we're going to go for it. We're going to get a bigger space. We're going to start with a homebrew supply shop, and then we're going to open up a brewery. I'm like, great. Apparently you got some sort of amazing funding in the last month or so to get that done. And they're like, yeah, it's you.
It's you.
So I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? My beer experience was beer and a shot at a bar, or a beer at a Corona at a barbecue. And that was the extent of it. I didn't really know much about it, or it was fine. I was more into cocktails, which is kind of how Adrian and I met. And that was it. So I'm like, sure. Well, get me a business plan, and maybe just didn't really sound right. And then I realized that, born and raised in Hollywood, always, good old American male blood. I want to own a bar, right? Like I always wanted to own a bar.
I think that's all of our fantasies, right?
Totally.
Is to own a bar.
Just own a bar.
I almost went through that. I don't know if I told you this, but I got through the whole thing. Wrote the business plan, worked with a commercial agent to find a space. Yep. We looked in every county, and we tried to get a space in every county, but if the county says yes, the property owner says no, or vice versa, right?
Totally.
We finally found a place, signed a lease, had a liquor license, had an attorney, had a broker. Like we had a broker for a couple of different things, and we were ready to go. And 10 days after we signed the lease, everything shut down for COVID.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Yeah, we put money down and everything. I mean, like it was a mess getting out of that. We had to go to court. But
I'm sure. Yeah, that's challenging. Yeah, that's the tough part. And back then it was complicated for us too because of the city requirements with any business really. I mean, LA City is a great city to be in for a number of reasons, but businesses I'll say is not like the most conducive to that. And they put those roadblocks up. But yeah, I jumped in because I figured at the time the reality was like I was going to be I was never going to own a bar. I mean, with the cost of living and the cost. I mean, you went through it and rents and all that, and I'm like, well, how much money can I invest that wouldn't hurt me terribly if I lost?
Yeah.
That's the way I viewed it.
Yeah.
And I put that money in, and then we kind of went from there. And there's been more expenses since and all that, but it's all sort of worked out. But it's kind of a funny story. We found the right space in Frogtown, and it was a good fit, and we're grateful to be there. And I handed them the keys, and they had this look of like joy and like fear
at the same
time. And I just looked at them going like, oh yeah, oops, like this is a big undertaking.
You're like, dude, okay, you guys got to make this shit happen now because we invested this much money. Totally. You have a space. There's probably a minimum amount of years they got to pay for this lease, right? Or do they own the building? You guys own the building?
It's a lease. No, lease.
So it's a lease.
We now have 2 places and they're both leased. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you're committed, man.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we don't have ownership kind of money. We have lease kind of money. But yeah, so I handed the keys off. I'm like, good luck, guys. And I looked at them like, holy smokes! Like this is really this is a big undertaking that we all signed up for. And we were all naive. And so the next day I sort of came back, or I maybe called them or texted them and said, hey, what are you guys going to do? I'm like, oh, we're going to start building out tonight. For the brew house, we're going to like redo the front room. All right, well, I might stop by. Came over and
gave you a hammer.
Yeah, handed a hammer to somebody or whatever, and then that was it. Then I just kept coming back.
Yeah.
And then part of it is protecting my investment. The other part it was just a care for the business and like a curiosity for the business and that whole thing. And it's been quite a wild ride. I mean, there's great times, bad times, all that stuff.
All of that
in one big ball of fun.
So did you guys start as a brewery? They didn't end up doing the
we started off as a homebrew supply shop.
So you did start out.
Yeah, now it's our storage room and staff break room. But that was the only thing that worked, and it helped pay some of the bills while we got through things. Yeah,
I remember those early days, man. I remember going in there, and then you would proudly say to me, "Oh, we built all this over here, and we did this, and we did that," and it was kind of a cool thing. It was a grassroots kind of growth, like DIY.
And a lot of that stuff I didn't know until last weekend. You just found at the end of the street.
Yep.
Scrap wood and
totally. Yeah. There's we have a saying, and I forget if it's Adam or Mike came up with it or say it. It's called feathered in. And I think it might be even be like a carpenter's term or something. But when you make something or put something together, oftentimes it's not going to be perfect. So you feather it. You kind of finesse it.
Yeah.
Well, we have a beer now. It's called Feathered In.
I was going to say you have a beer called Feathered In.
It's our session IPA.
So that one wasn't very good, and you guys had to kind of.
It was a screw up, for sure.
Really,
it was a screw up that was supposed to be, and Adam knows the details as our brewer, but it was supposed to be a higher ABV IPA, and it wasn't. And it was like, oh, this is not where it's supposed to be. And it came in at 4.1 or maybe 4.5 or something. It's like, oh, this is off. We're going to have to toss this. And it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. It's actually pretty good tasting. It's
but someone's
actually,
dude, just feather it in.
Just feather it in, like, yeah. And then he did whatever he needed to do from a brewing perspective, and it still is one of, or was, we don't carry it as often anymore, but it was one of our top selling beers.
That.
It's a great beer. It's like a mild IPA, and it's a session IPA, so you can drink 4 or 5 of them and still be cool. You know, some IPAs are obviously over the top, but yeah.
So I've always told you guys, I'm not an IPA guy. IPAs are always too bitter to me until I started drinking Frogtown's IPAs. I love all your IPAs. I've never had a beer there that I didn't like.
Thank you.
And which is kind of unusual for your menu, especially in the early days, was very IPA heavy. Adam had explained to me how you guys tempered the bitterness and how you balanced it more out. And I thought, oh, well, that's why I like your IPAs. It's funny because this whole collab that we're doing with our friends at the Donn of Tiki. So Alex, the way that Alex and I met is he reaches out to me because he wants to interview me for his project, his film project.
Yeah, I haven't heard this. This is interesting. Yeah.
And so, sure, yeah, I'll come on out. He comes to the Desert Oasis room. We do this whole thing about the Filipino bartenders, right? They started at Don the Beachcomber.
Super important.
Yeah, we got the Tiki Tea now. And if you look at the history, right?
And we argued about some of them.
We argued about some
I don't think you're right.
Well,
and you're
like,
I think I'm right. And then we had to like pull out books and stuff to
proof. Right. Well, I think that we were both subconsciously intimidated by not being accurate with our information, and we both studied the night before. And that's why we were arguing. I was like, no.
Google says.
Right. And we became...
Jeff Berry says here.
Right. We became fast friends during this project, and Alex has been kind enough to bring me on board to help them with this whole film project. So thank you for letting me be a part of this, Alex. One day I was on my daily walk. I walk every day just to try to keep the blood flowing. I don't remember who called who, if you called me or if I called you, but that morning Alex asked me, hey, so what's going on today? Are you doing anything? And I said, I'm going to Frogtown today to hang out with a couple buddies. I said, you're welcome to come join me if you want. And he said, yeah, I'll come join you. And he came down with his wife, and he met Greg and Ricky and all the other assholes I hang out with, right?
I do
Who
remember.
are these assholes?
Lovable assholes.
Yahoos.
And I think I introduced you to Gustavo that day.
Yeah,
You're right.
sure.
You gave me a tour.
Yeah.
You gave me a tour though, like at the end of the night. I was very drunk. I think you were like, and here, and I was like, whoa, these machines are big.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
He's like, where's the rest of the beer?
Yeah, and I told Alex, I said, hey man, this is like my favorite brewery in LA. This is the spot. They have the best beers, and the people here are great. Not just the people that work there, but there's a community in that brewery.
Yeah.
And
Got some good group of regulars.
yeah, and we kind of bonded that night because I think like you really enjoyed not only the beers, but just the camaraderie and the whole atmosphere and
It's
stuff.
almost like a brewery version of Tiki Tea.
It almost is, right?
There's like a regular. There are regulars you see there every time you go.
Yep.
You feel comfortable. You feel like you belong. They're really good at making you feel like you belong.
Right.
Yeah.
Rick's one of our regulars, right?
Yeah,
Ricky
yeah.
from
Gearheads.
Tiki Tea, from the Gearheads as well. So I know it's like funny how all the worlds sort of come together, right? I know Ricky from the car club scene, which is I'm in a car club, and I met him at a couple shows, and it was kind of he's not the warmest guy in the world, right? He is now,
But he is.
He is
He
now.
is.
Oh, he is now. I mean, 2 painkillers in, he's hugging me like no one's business, right? But him and I get along great now. But back then, because I think I've known him, I don't know, 10 years maybe. But it was always like high and by. We definitely got along with cars. It was always like car talk, you name it. And then that's kind of where it ended. That was sort of it. Maybe we'd share a beer at a car show kind of thing. Like if he was at our camp and we had a cooler open of beers, he'd had one. Or if I was at his camp, I'd get one. But that was kind of how it was. And then I saw him at Tiki Tea, and he kind of gave me like that look, like, all right, like maybe you're cool. And somehow I convinced him one day when we got drunk at Tiki Tea to come over and check out the beer, and he kind of nodded like, yeah, all right. And he came over, and we had just released, I want to say, the Painkiller, our first tiki beer, and he fell in love with it. And now he, and I take this with all the honor it has. We are one of his top 2 bars in all of Los Angeles.
And there you go.
Yeah.
Tiki T and us. Period.
There you go.
And then he really doesn't go to other bars unless he's traveling.
Right.
And that's it. And so it's like
those are the
regard.
2 bars.
I'd say that's probably the same for Adrian and myself.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
Like,
for a lot of people.
That's awesome.
For a lot of people. For the Vatos.
Yeah.
The Vatos are
Tiki,
the Vatos Utiki. It's Tiki Tea or Frogtown.
Sure.
Yeah. And what I'm getting at is that when we talked about doing this collab, so initially it was a collab that was with the Desert Oasis Room in Frogtown, and I thought, I think that it would be cool to bring in the Donn of Tiki guys. They're working on this project, and I think it'd be kind of...
You told me that Gustavo wanted to bring us in.
Did I?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Did I really?
You're like, so Gustavo was like, do you think that the Donn of Tiki guys would want to be involved?
I don't remember saying
it was actually Alex and I had agreed, and then he was like, what about Adrian?
You just started showing up.
Yeah.
Just started showing up.
Adrian's my driver. Is it okay if he comes in? Like, sure. He can come inside.
Well, whatever the truth is, when we decided to all partner up together, there was no other brewery that we were going to do this with. We just thought, like, it's got to be Frogtown, right? We've got to do this with Frogtown.
Love it.
Yeah.
And it became this process now of like, okay, so we're gonna be doing this. Let's figure out what we're gonna do. And we started by visiting Don's Delectable 30.
Yeah.
And narrowing it down to what from this 30 is gonna make sense as a beer. And we narrowed it down to like 5 or 6.
Yes.
Went to the Desert Oasis.
Shout out to Chris.
Shout out to our friend Chris Summers.
Chris Cornell, sorry. That's what
Chris Cornell.
He was playing the background music while we were drinking. Yeah.
And we were able to narrow down, I think, the 5 or 6. Our friend Chris Summers, who was really great. Follow him at My Tai Till I Die. He mixed up these drinks for us so that we could make some decisions. Is this going to be beer friendly? Is this going to translate into something that people will enjoy? Do you remember what the first 5 or 6 were?
The QB Cooler.
3 dots.
3 dots and a dash. Zombie.
Navy Grog?
I don't think we did Navy Grog. I think Navy Grog... Well, I mean, I think it's such a dry cocktail. It was like, well, how do you make this beer without just making it taste like rum?
And then, of course,
the Beachcomber's Gold.
Beachcomber's Gold.
And, like, I feel bad saying this because this sounds so lame, but originally when we were talking about this at Frogtown, the 3 of us, I was like, it'd be really cool to do the Beachcomber's Gold, and we could do, like, a golden ale, only because of the name.
Right.
But then I didn't want to push it because that's a really stupid reason to choose a cocktail to do the beer after.
Right.
But it was on our list. And I think...
what are you drinking over there, Gustavo?
I just randomly picked up a...
oh, look, it's Frogtown beer.
Lights Out Czech Pilsner from Frogtown Brewery.
I'm sorry, I rudely interrupted you, Alex.
Actually, I was a rude one. I'm sorry.
Well, I think we... I think that what happened...
Alex,
Gustavo, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think what happened is Chris actually overpoured. He messed up a recipe, which is odd for Chris because Chris is
pretty good.
He's a pretty epic bartender.
Yeah.
Let's not say messed up. He riffed.
He riffed. Okay, he riffed.
He feathered it in.
He feathered it in. on the Beachcomber's Gold. And I think he was a little bit heavy.
He's lost weight since then.
Yeah. On the Pernod or the absinthe, whatever he was using.
The anise
flavor, and I don't think that made me think it would be a good beer. I don't think it made you think it would be a good beer, but I think it made Gustavo think this would be like a really fun challenge.
Yes, I remember the word challenge.
Yeah.
So we went from I think 5 to 2.
Yes.
And that's when Gustavo was saying...
It was between the Beachcomber's Gold and the QB Cooler. And both of those we thought historically had a lot to do with Donn, and they both are kind of featured in the documentary. And we thought those would both be really good drinks to do it on, because if it's about sort of the history of Donn, that would be cool. But then we had a second session, right?
The second session was when we narrowed it down to the two, and we had the brewers with us. We had the brewing team with us, which became an interesting day because by the end of the night...
I still don't remember leaving. I think I'm still there.
And that's what I'm getting at. I think everybody was inebriated enough that, I'm glad we made a decision while we were not inebriated, right? And that's when we decided that it was going to be the Beachcomber's Gold because of the challenge.
Because of the challenge, yeah. Gustavo kind of told us, I already know what the brewers are going to want to do, because this is going to be kind of hard, but it's also going to be really fun.
Sure.
And if we pull it off, it's going to be really fun and really cool. And I think you, me, and Max were all a little bit unsure about it. We're like,
anise was unsure of it.
Anise is a strong flavor.
Yep. Which most people really don't like.
Most people don't like it. You ask people if they like black licorice, they say no. Nope. And that's kind of the same flavor.
I was definitely, yeah. I mean, no one's done it before in a beer, from what I understand.
I'm sure with all the microbrews, some crazy asshole
someone must have, but nothing.
Nobody's done it this well.
There you go. Well said. Or a noticeable scale.
Yeah. So next step. So after we decide what we're going to do, we schedule a brew day.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. How many 50-pound bags of grain were there?
There were 13.
13. So thanks, guys. I think I only had to pick up like 3 of them.
You did. I was just going to say, I did 10 and you did 3.
That's about right.
No, you didn't do 10.
I did.
No, because Gustavo did a couple.
Okay.
Adam did a couple.
I did 9. You did 3. Gustavo did. Adam
the
did
math
not do
does
one.
not add up.
Adam
did not.
He mimed how to do it.
This is true.
He didn't even do the first one?
Do this.
No.
What about the stuff that he weighed? He weighed something. There was a bag, a partial bag,
a half bag,
partial bag. He weighed it.
So he lifted it like a couple inches off the ground and put it on
the scale.
And Adam was doing much more important stuff than lifting bags. It's not like he wasn't.
Well, you know what?
Anything,
look, to be fair, you look like you got it. I mean, and I had to fix the camera and make sure that everything.
I mean, the shoulders on Alex.
Right, because that's all delts right there.
Yeah.
Right, when you pick that thing up.
That was a good workout. My Apple Watch did not say, hey.
I helped you on the last 2 inches.
Only a couple minutes left.
I helped you on the last 2 inches there. Right?
Yeah, you did.
So to speak.
But man, I'll tell you, that day, because of that mash filter and the way that tank works, shoveling that thing out there, right? Jonathan did a barrel. Yep. I did a barrel. Alex did a barrel. And what's happening here is,
full barrel. I did what was left.
For our listeners that don't know, so there's a filtration system at the bottom of is that the mash tun?
Yes.
And when the water is boiled and the grain is added, it drains through this filter at the bottom, the way that like an undergravel filter in an aquarium works, kind of.
Yep. And
the spent grain has to be essentially shoveled out of the tank.
Yep.
And you have to do it around what's the mixing device?
The arms.
They're just the arms inside.
Yeah.
And man, we had to shovel those into barrels. And the way that the shovel works, you're kind of pulling on it as though you're rowing a boat, right?
Yeah. You explaining how a shovel works.
Well, it's not a real shovel. It's not really a shovel.
It's like a blunt,
whatever you call that thing, right? Yeah. And so what I'm getting at is first the grain with the delts, right? Lifting the bags up to something that was like a counter that was about chest high. So first you're working the delts, and then when you're going up and down the steps, right, you're working a stair stepper, and then when you got to clear out the mash tun, now you're doing lats. Nice. So we had a full body workout that day.
And you would think that we'd be ripped at the end of it. But Gustavo is like, hey, you guys want a beer? Every 5 minutes.
Well, that's the thing. So here's the secret about
you guys ripped. Like, well, that's what you wanted.
Here's the secret about brewing beer. no one drinks water in the brewery. I ordered a burrito and Gustavo was like, "Oh, don't buy a soda, dude. We got beer inside." I'm like, "Oh yeah, why would I buy a soda? We got beer inside." So like all day long we're drinking beer, and so that's how we're quenching our thirst. That's how we're replenishing our sweat. That's how we
how the
are.
monks do it.
That's how we're cooling down, right? It's just all
Very
beer.
religious experience.
Oh my god. Yeah. So, dude, I was knocked out at the end of the day.
I think the biggest thing about this is that, like, this is, obviously Frogtown, you guys are the experts at making beer, but this was a true collaboration in that we actually,
absolutely, absolutely. And hands off to you guys for making that effort. I mean, it could have been like, cool, like let us know when the party is, and can we get a
we
VIP table?
100% helped make this beer.
We worked on it. We helped choose the hops. We
helped
did
balance the flavor.
I got to press some buttons on the
press
machine.
Buttons on the touch screen.
Yeah.
but
you even double checked it. I'm like, are you sure we need to add this into the beer? What if I mess this up?
Right.
Yeah, that happened a couple times.
I mean, all in all, too, when we were deciding how this beer was going to taste, all of us sat around that table and we helped balance that, right?
Oh, for sure.
Deciding how much anise we wanted in there, how much lime we wanted in there, all of that. Right?
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. So we've done this is our fifth in the Tiki series or so. So we've done beers with the Donn of Tiki, Scotty Shooter, Dirty Dick Paris, Jeff Beachcomber. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He runs this little bar.
Who is that guy?
We don't have enough time, really. But he's a good guy and a great friend. And
he's an old friend of ours. Yeah,
absolutely. And
we're buddies with Jeff.
Yeah, we collaborate with him. That was our own sort of thing. Okay, so that
wasn't a collab. That was just part of the Tiki.
line. It's part of a Tiki line, and we were. I mean, I don't want to speak for our peeps at the brewery, but too scared to try to collab with anyone. It was like, let's make a beer to see if we can even.
Oh, so was that the first one? That was
Painkiller
the
was
one
the
you
first
did
one.
with the Donn of Tiki.
Absolutely, yeah. Painkiller was the first one, and then I would walk into Tiki Tea, and we usually give hugs or high fives or a combination thereof, and then you kind of catch up on everyone's week. How you been? How's this? How's the wife and kids? That sort of thing, and then everyone sort of kind of gets into their own thing about Adrian starting a podcast years ago, or.
We started the same month. I started in October of 2016.
There you go. Yeah. So we were talking about our everyone's got to pay the bills, and then we talk about our like passions or our side projects or whatever. And this brewery thing was just that. And then it was kind of like, sheepishly like, oh, we're going to make a Painkiller beer. And then someone was like, what? That sounds amazing. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, let's not get carried away. But as soon as it's ready, I'd like to bring some over or come over and have some. And that's really what's like sort of blown the doors off of this with the collabs is that Painkiller. And I took one on a plane. I took a 4-pack on a plane to London, an invite from a friend. Shout out to Alex to go to UK Rum Fest. He's right here. I should just said it. So UK Rum Fest, and then one thing led to another. Met Jeff Berry out there. I think I'd met him once before, but more of like a fanboy scenario. He didn't press charges, thankfully. But either way, so I met him at UK Rum Fest, and I didn't want to do it, but my friend handed him a Painkiller and said, "Oh, this is great. You got to try this." And he kind of tasted it, and there was like a drum roll in my head, and then what seemed like an eternity. And he's like, "Oh, this is amazing. Like if
it's great."
I like it, but you always wonder how you perceive your own, right? You guys each have your own art and craft.
Yeah.
The Donn of Tiki, that's a
you
big,
do wonder because you're going to be biased about
for sure. Yeah, you can be your own worst critic, but sometimes you're like, well, I also kind of like it, but am I just being like, you don't know, right?
Yeah. Am I just tired of fixing it?
Totally. It's just good enough. Yeah. And he was super complimentary of it and appreciative of it, and there's nothing better for a commercial venture than somebody to say, I would love to carry your XYZ, right?
Sure.
I'd love to show your movie. I'd love to host your podcast or sponsor it or whatever, right? And that's like, wow, that really resonates. So he said, oh, I'd love to carry this at Latitude. Let's find a way awesome. to get it there. We've yet to find a way to economically get it there.
Right.
But just that alone spoke volumes. So that reinvigorated us, along with having the regulars from the tiki scene and tiki tea, and I really appreciate it. And I think we've given something back to tiki and to the cocktail scene and to the bar scene, because people who don't know anything about tiki or cocktails or anything taste it and say, well, what does that mean, Painkiller? And you explain it, and it sort of brings those folks back into that.
It's put you guys too on the map for the tiki culture or the tiki community out here in LA, because I would argue that there's no other brewery in LA that tiki people associate any kind of time or camaraderie or community with,
Sure.
other than Frogtown. It's the only brewery where the tiki people will go to.
I think so. I think that's a fair statement. Short of like a couple folks that are really, really diehards into XYZ or this, which is totally understandable if they want like a specific beer or a stout, but like from a community standpoint, and they are discerning, as many people are in culinary or whatever. So it's a big compliment. It's a huge compliment to have folks like, we talked about Ricky or any of the other folks. Some of the, Greg is a bartender at Tiki Tea. He comes in regularly, and
we'll bring a group in with Greg. We've got the Vatos who go there all the time.
Yep.
Different car clubs, people that hang out in the tiki scene and are also part of the car club community, the rockabilly people.
Sure, yeah.
It's kind of like the hub from a brewery perspective for all of the same subcultures that cross into the tiki genre.
Yep.
And that's what makes Frogtown different than everybody else. It was a natural fit for us, right? We're going to be doing this event. So we've got this beer that we just made a couple of days ago.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, blood, sweat, and tears. Not literally in the beer.
Not literally in the beer.
Just off to the side.
But in the tank now, right? In the tanks now. We're going to be canning that soon.
But there's also like the Painkiller will be there, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have a full tiki day.
Full tiki day
at the park, and by park I mean Frogtown Brewery. And it is scheduled for Sunday, April 3rd.
April 3rd.
We're open. Our regular hours are opening from noon to 10. The Tiki event itself really can run all day, but specifically for the entertainment and festivities is from 2 to 8.
2 to 8 o'clock.
And Alex, can you give us a little hint as to what gems you'll be providing?
Yeah, well, we're going to have a new preview for the Donn of Tiki with footage that we haven't shown before.
All new footage.
All new footage.
Extended preview.
Yeah, that was
longer than any preview you've seen so far. That was a sticking point
with my co-director Max. He said nothing that's been seen before, and that made it really hard.
Sure. All new footage.
But it's done. Yeah, so it's
the movie's going to be about 2 hours, and this trailer is going to be about 97 minutes. So please show up. See it.
It is a shorter
than 97
preview
minutes,
of the movie, but it'll be cool. It kind of shows what we've been working on and what we're continuing to work on throughout this year. And we're gonna have live music, DJs, vendors.
Let's talk about that. We're gonna have vendors, tiki vendors. We're going to have some food trucks there. We're gonna have raffles, DJs. DJ Alnova, I know, is gonna be one of the guys there.
Absolutely. And
live
music.
We just signed the Volcanics, which if you guys have seen the Volcanics live, you know that they bring the party. These guys are so much fun. People just love to dance along to their music, but they really bring a festive atmosphere. So this event is going to be fun. It's already a big day on Sundays at Frogtown Brewery, but we're going to blow the doors off this time. And with the preview and with the vendors and the music and everything, you guys are not going to want to miss this. And you're going to get to try the beer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So a beer with, I'm going to say it again, we're going to own it. The first time that we probably have ever seen anise in a beer.
First time I've seen anise in a beer.
First time I've seen anise in a beer.
But it's not overpowering or scary.
Well,
it's
look,
just in
it
there
was a
and
challenge for us, right?
Yeah.
And we said we want to take on the challenge, and here we go. You guys can tell us what you think.
Totally.
So come to the event and try this thing out.
And how far away is the event from Whittier? Where the
that's a great point.
You heard it here first.
If you guys are going to be in town for the Oceanic Arts farewell event. Let me start by saying Frogtown Brewery is an official sponsor of that.
Official sponsor
of that on April 2nd, Saturday. You guys are going to go to that thing, right? And if you are in town for that, stop by our event the next day, and we are going to be having something that is kind of going to be done. And I don't know how much I can say. Can I say anything about that yet?
Let's
Gustavo?
see. What can we say? My attorney's here, by the way, so I'm like, I'm looking at him and I'm trying to understand what his stares mean. So if I'm reading him correctly, he is saying that we're allowed to say that we are an official sponsor of the Oceanic Arts farewell tour. We are sponsoring the VIP event. That's the week of to sort of kick off the festivities for the month. We are sponsoring, and you'll be able to taste our delicious beers at the April 2nd event. Adrian will be there. Alex will be smuggled in a duffel bag, so you'll see him there for sure. Just don't make eye contact. And then we will have potentially some artifacts from them on loan at the event. We're still kind of ironing that out as the attorney gives me a dirty look, but that's fine. We can say it. It's said. I can't take it back now.
There it is.
And we've specifically requested the VIP attendance, if it's possible. We don't know if we won't know until the day of, but we've requested the attendance of
Bob and Leroy.
Right. Exactly right. So hopefully they're able to make it. Understandably, they may not with all the activities going on and being pulled in different directions, but they're aware of it and have been officially invited, and they have a place there if they can join us. But either way, it's going to be a great event. We will have, back to the original question by Alex, we're going to have our painkiller. We will have this, which is obviously the original tiki beer, and we'll have Spindrift, the collab with Jeff Beachcomber. We're going to have ours, Beachcomber's Gold, and then we're trying to get another one sort of brewed in time. We're going to cut it close, but ideally we want to have a fourth tiki beer.
Love it.
Yeah, and then we'll have another 10 or a dozen of our great beers that are non-tiki, which is also good too, right?
Yeah, you guys are going to love. And one more thing that we didn't mention, shout out to Doug Horn, who designed the label for our new beer. Yeah, you bring up a great point. So I was going to say it earlier.
So the gentlemen here are being very, what's the word I'd like to use? Coy. This isn't just a, hey, do you guys want to do something great? Give us a couple ideas and we'll run with it. We've done recipe design. We've done label design. We've done event design. We've done all the things, and they are like 100% partners in this beer, and have had say and input in all the aspects of it, which is really what this is about, and having it be meaningful. And then Doug Horn was instrumental in getting the ideas all put together on a label, and Adrian was able to piece that together. I emailed, called, and wrote Doug for years. He hasn't responded yet. But Adrian texted him once, and he was on, which is great. You know, we all have our strengths. But Doug's a great guy.
And he was a trooper. We just kept throwing in Easter eggs, like, oh, can you just
how about
this tiny
how about
little
that?
thing
How
here
about
and this
that?
here? And he's
Yeah,
like, fine.
Oh, totally.
Like, okay.
No, he's amazing, and I look forward to like sitting with him and having a beer that day. But with all that said, like, everyone's come together to put this, put this beer in it. I
love it. Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah,
thank you for pointing that out. For our listeners, we're not just putting our names on here. Desert Oasis Room and the Donn of Tiki are not just putting our names on the label. We helped with all of our input came into the label design. All of our input came into the creation of the beer, as well as our efforts.
Absolutely.
And all of our input is going into creating this special event for releasing this beer. Sure. And the previews and the entertainment and all of that. So this is truly a collaborative effort that we are all very proud of, that we are excited to share with you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys are there on Sunday, April 3rd, and you see Adrian and Alex crying, just give them a moment. Just give them a moment. It's tears of joy. There's a lot of emotions are going to well up.
I love you, man.
Yeah, a lot of hugs. Just give them a moment. Give them some time.
All right, so if you guys want more information, you can follow us at the Donn of Tiki with 2 N's, at Frogtown Brewery, or at Polynesian Pop. Follow Polynesian Pop. Desert Oasis Room is just where I sell my mugs and stuff. So all the main stuff's going to be posted at Polynesian Pop. You can follow all 3 of us. It'd be awesome if you followed all 3 of us because we love you and we want you on our page.
Yeah, and I think Frogtown Brewery, you guys are going to set up like an event page on Facebook, I believe.
We're going to set up, if we haven't done so already, set up an event page on Facebook and follow all the socials. And for those of you who are listening who also are following the details through the Peekaboo Gallery folks that are setting up the Oceanic Oceanic Arts events, sorry. Then you will have you'll see them mention us as well and mention the event because we're one of the sponsoring events as part of their Tiki weekend. So
there you go.
Look out for it.
There you go. All right, party people. Looking forward to seeing you there. April 3rd. The brewery opens at 12.
Sunday.
Come down at 12 if you want to come down early. I guarantee it's going to fill up. So come early. And
You won't play till dark.
yeah, we'll play the preview later, but come down and enjoy the music, the DJs, the bands,
Beer.
the vendors, the food,
Yeah.
all of that stuff.
Adrian's going to give free hugs for the first 50 customers.
Gonna have a great time, and come stop and say hello to us. We're gonna have booths there as well, so come say hello, and we will see you there.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Anything else?
Enjoy.
Anything else? All right, party people.
Beers up.
We'll see you Sunday, April 3rd.
Ciao.
Cheers and aloha.
Cheers. I love you guys.